You know, I want you to think about a time if you've ever lived in a space that just felt, um, off.
Oh, yeah. Like a house where the floorboards just creak a little too loudly in the dead of night.
Right. Or a room that just feels inexplicably hostile the moment you step inside.
Definitely.
And we're always so quick to rationalize that feeling.
Oh, absolutely. We start blaming the drafts or, the old wiring.
Yeah, the settling foundation.
Exactly. We tell ourselves it's just the physical architecture showing its age.
Right. But what if the rot wasn't in the floorboards at all?
Oh.
What if the rot was in the people living there?
Wow. That is an incredibly unsettling concept
It really is.
because it just completely strips away our primary defense mechanism.
How so?
Well, we desperately rely on the physical structures around us to be our sanctuaries.
Right, our safe spaces.
Exactly.
I
So when that sanctuary feels tainted, our first instinct is obviously to look for a structural flaw. Like, oh, it's a leaky pipe or a cracked beam.
Right, because the alternative is terrifying.
Right. Because the idea that the people we share the space with are the actual source of the decay,
Yeah.
that is simply too devastating to confront.
Yeah.
It means the danger isn't the house. The danger is the person sleeping right next to you.
And that precise, suffocating realization is the heartbeat of the source material for today's deep dive.
Yes.
We are looking at C.G. Drew's You Did Nothing Wrong.
Such an intense read.
It really is. Because we are pulling apart the anatomy of a story that it wears the mask of a classic haunted house thriller.
Right. It looks like a ghost story on the surface.
Exactly. But it actually operates as this profoundly brutal examination of trauma, toxic obsession, and just the terrifying, crushing weight of motherhood.
It's heady stuff.
Yeah, we are basically looking at a family that appears entirely flawless on paper, but the moment you scratch the surface, you realize they are just rotting from the inside out.
And the brilliance of this source material, I think, lies in its layered deception.
Oh, for sure.
Because we, as the audience, are forced to navigate the deeply fractured psyche of an unreliable narrator.
Constantly.
Right. We're constantly questioning, like, what is real? What is just a manifestation of immense psychological stress?
Or what is deliberate manipulation?
Exactly. We're observing these two violently colliding traumas
Yeah.
and examining just how desperate people will go to horrifying, unspeakable lengths to construct the illusion of a functional family.
And to really understand that illusion, we have to look at the stage they've built for themselves,
Let's set the scene.
So we have Elodie, who is only 22 years old.
So young.
Right. And we have her husband, Bren, who is 23.
Also incredibly young.
Yeah. And then there's Elodie's 6-year-old son, Jude.
Okay.
And they have recently relocated to Bren's childhood home.
Right, the Victorian.
Yes, this massive, imposing 1890s Victorian house located in the very picturesque, very affluent town of Farrows, Virginia.
Of course.
And Farrows is painted as this idyllic, insulated place where, nothing ugly is ever allowed to happen.
Very Stepford.
Exactly. It's all ivy crawling over the brickwork of historic churches and pristine window boxes full of blooming flowers.
And neighbors who notice absolutely everything.
Oh, yes. The neighbors see it all.
It represents a very specific kind of generational wealth.
Yeah.
And entrenched social standing.
Absolutely.
It's an environment that basically demands conformity to a certain aesthetic of perfection.
Right.
And into this hyper-curated world steps Elodie, who fundamentally just does not belong there.
Not at all.
And Bren, who is treating this massive 1890s Victorian not just as a home, but as a resurrection project.
Oh, resurrection project is exactly the right phrase because Bren is entirely consumed by renovating this house all by himself.
Which is wild.
Right. And he has all the trappings of the perfect modern provider. He's wealthy. He is handsome.
He wears those crisp white shirts with the sleeves casually rolled up.
Forearm roll. And he projects this aura of just endless, unwavering patience.
Right.
And he provides absolutely everything for Elodie financially.
Which is a dynamic in itself.
For sure. It would be incredibly easy to look at them and see this hyper-curated, earthy-toned influencer aesthetic.
Oh, totally. Like an Instagram feed.
Exactly. The vintage wooden toys, the antique milk jugs filled with fresh dahlias on the marble kitchen counters.
But the aesthetic is entirely incongruous with the psychological reality of the people living inside it.
Completely. And I actually have to throw a flag on Bren's so-called perfection right away.
Please do.
I mean, look at his behavior. Is it remotely typical for a 23-year-old guy, a young accountant, to be this obsessively consumed with playing house?
Well, no. Not usually.
Right. He's spending every single waking minute outside of his day job, tearing down lath and plaster, sourcing antique furniture.
Acting like a master carpenter, architect, and electrician simultaneously.
Yes. There is this frantic, unblinking devotion of a zealot building a shrine. It isn't just a hobby for him.
No, it's a compulsion.
Exactly. A total compulsion.
And that compulsion is a crucial psychological tell.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, when you look at the stark contrast in their daily states of being, it's actually alarming.
Yeah.
You have Bren's manic, almost feverish renovation energy running parallel to Elodie's profound, bone-deep exhaustion.
They're living in two different worlds.
Exactly. They are experiencing the exact same physical space in entirely incompatible ways.
Right.
Bren views this house as a sacred monument to his late parents. He is meticulously trying to recreate the exact home, the exact safety that he lost.
But Elodie's living in a totally different reality.
Right.
She views this house as a literal death trap.
Yes.
Everywhere she looks, she sees exposed electrical wires, missing floorboards, fist-sized holes in the drywall that just drop down into absolute darkness.
She is living in a perpetual state of high-alert panic.
Oh, constantly.
She's constantly visualizing the worst-case scenarios.
Like Bren falling off a ladder.
Right, and breaking his neck. Or Jude touching a live wire and being electrocuted.
It's an exhausting hypervigilance.
It really is.
And this is compounded by the immense class divide between her and the world Bren brought her into.
Oh, the January family.
Yes, the January family, Bren's family. They are established, wealthy, and impossibly polished.
Right.
His older sister, Ava, is the ultimate manifestation of this.
Oh, he...
She lives in an immaculate, dust-free house with a 2-year-old.
Which is impossible, by the way.
Literally impossible. And she's just wafting around in pastel cashmere and pearl earrings.
And the introduction of Ava is so vital because she serves as the yardstick by which Elodie constantly measures her own perceived failures.
Yes, the comparison is brutal.
Elodie actually describes herself feeling like a swamp goblin or a sliver of midnight compared to the pastel perfection of what she calls the perfect Januaries.
The perfect Januaries, it says so much.
It does. She is acutely, painfully aware that she is a high school dropout who came from absolute squalor.
Right.
And she's completely dependent on Bren's family wealth to survive.
Yeah.
That kind of financial and social dependency breeds a deep internalized shame.
And Bren's obsession with control and aesthetics is nowhere more visible than in the nursery he designed for Jude.
Oh, let's talk about the nursery.
This room is a masterpiece of historical preservation, but it is deeply, deeply unsettling.
Yeah, it's not a normal kid's room.
No. Bren didn't just go to a hardware store and buy a gallon of blue paint, you know?
Right.
He hired a specialist to replicate 19th century wallpaper.
Wow.
This incredibly intricate pattern featuring little foxes and hedgehogs wearing tiny jackets.
Of course they are.
Right. And he restored an antique woodland bed frame. The shelves are absolutely packed with centuries-old toys.
Which sounds terrifying.
It is. Heavy tin soldiers, porcelain dolls with those unblinking glass eyes.
Ugh, the glass eyes.
A massive, imposing wooden dollhouse.
I mean, it's an aesthetic triumph, certainly.
Yeah.
But functionally, it is incredibly suffocating.
Totally.
It reads like a museum exhibit of a Victorian childhood, not a functional safe room for a modern 6-year-old boy.
Especially one with severe behavioral issues.
Exactly. It perfectly encapsulates Bren's rigid, unyielding control over the environment.
Yeah.
He isn't building a room for the child he actually has. He is building a set piece for the family he wishes he had.
Wow. Yes.
He wants Jude to just play the role of the quiet, appreciative Victorian child sitting on a rug playing with a tin drum.
But that pristine nursery is completely incompatible with the reality of the child meant to live in it.
Because Jude is not a Victorian doll.
Not even close. The moment the door closes on that beautiful house, Elodie is locked in a relentless, agonizing psychological war with her own son.
It's so hard to read.
It really is. Jude is 6 years old, but he is small for his age, and his behavior is deeply regressed.
Right.
He is entirely nonverbal about his feelings or his needs.
Which has to be so frustrating for both of them.
Exactly. Instead of communicating, he is prone to these incredibly violent, hours-long meltdowns.
Yeah.
He thrashes, he bites, he kicks and screams until he is hoarse.
And the dynamic between mother and son here, it just defies all the conventional sanitized narratives of motherhood we usually sold, you know?
Oh, completely.
Elodie is quite literally terrified of her own child.
Terrified.
The language the source material uses is visceral and striking.
What does she call him?
She describes him as her baby hurricane in a jar and a creature made of milk teeth.
God, creature made of milk teeth. That is haunting.
It is. There's a fundamental fracture in their attachment.
And to even manage him, to get him to perform basic human functions, Elodie has to rely entirely on a manipulative, exhausting game of Simon Says.
Oh, the Simon Says game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Jude apparently despises losing.
Okay.
So he will only obey her instructions, like putting on his shoes or eating a piece of food or stepping away from a dangerous ledge if she frames it as this competitive game.
Wow.
It's a daily survival tactic. She describes it as pulling his strings like a floppy puppet.
That is so dark.
Imagine the mental toll, right? Having to trick your child into basic compliance every single minute of every single day.
It really speaks to a profound level of enmeshment.
Enmeshment.
Yeah, in clinical psychology, enmeshment occurs when the personal boundaries between two or more people become highly permeable and unclear.
Okay, that makes sense.
So Elodie views Jude not as an independent, autonomous human being with his own distinct psychology.
Right.
She sees him as a literal extension of her own physical body. She actually notes in the text that she feels she acts as his lungs and his heartbeat.
Oh my God.
She believes she built him from her own scraps.
That is so intense.
Right. And the danger of that level of enmeshment is that when the child naturally rejects the parent or acts out aggressively,
Yeah.
the parent doesn't perceive it as a behavioral issue. They perceive it as their own body attacking them.
Like an autoimmune disease.
Exactly. It feels like an autoimmune disease of the soul.
And Elodie is fighting this war completely alone. The text casually drops the fact that she deleted all of her social media profiles.
Which is a huge red flag.
Right. And why did she do that? Because Bren suggested it would be better for her mental health.
Of course he did.
So she has no friends from her past. She has no family she speaks to.
No support system.
None. She has no online support groups for mothers of difficult children.
Yeah.
She is entirely isolated, trapped inside a drafty, half-gutted Victorian house with a child who physically assaults her and a husband who is away at his accounting firm all day.
And that isolation is a critical mechanism of control.
Absolutely.
Whether Bren intended it maliciously at first or not, it cuts her off from any external reality checks.
Right.
I mean, everyone understands that creeping, dreadful feeling of failing at something important.
Sure.
Now, magnify that by 1,000.
Yeah.
Imagine your failure isn't a missed deadline at work. It's the literal psychological destruction of your own child.
And you have no one to talk to about it.
Exactly. You have absolutely no one to confide in. Elodie is paralyzed by the terror of the outside world judging Jude,
Yeah.
and by extension, judging her as fundamentally defective.
And she is so paralyzed by that fear of judgment that she actively refuses to get Jude medical or psychological help.
Which is the real tragedy here.
It really is. There is a moment mentioned where, years ago, a pediatrician recognized the severe developmental red flags.
Okay.
And the doctor gave Elodie a referral to get Jude assessed by a specialist.
A lifeline.
Yes, a lifeline. But Elodie took that piece of paper, got on the bus to go home, and tore it into tiny pieces.
Oh, wow.
She hated the condescension in the doctor's voice. She hated the idea that someone might label her son broken.
Right.
So she hides everything.
Everything.
Everything. She hides the fact that he sucks his thumb raw, that he regularly has toilet accidents at 6 years old,
At 6, yeah, that's significant.
and that he refuses to eat anything other than crackers and string cheese.
Yeah.
She conceals all of this from Bren, from Ava, from the world, because she is terrified that if they see the truth, they will take him away from her.
She is desperately trying to maintain the facade that Bren demands.
Exactly.
She wants Bren to believe they are this malleable, fixable little family unit.
Right.
But the sheer immense pressure of containing a volatile 6-year-old while maintaining a perfect aesthetic, it's unsustainable.
Totally unsustainable.
The cracks in the facade don't just show, they violently rupture.
Okay, let's look at how those ruptures manifest, because the incidents described in the text are harrowing.
They really are.
There's a scene in the middle of the night where Elodie wakes up in a panic. She realizes Jude isn't in his bed.
Every parent's nightmare.
Right. She searches the dark, half-renovated house and finds him in the unfinished dining room.
Okay.
He is crouching beside Bren's massive open toolbox.
Oh, no.
He is holding a heavy steel hammer, and he is just silently dropping it down into an open wall cavity that Bren had cut to run new electrical wires.
And the reaction Elodie has in this moment, it just strips away any illusion of gentle, patient parenting.
Oh, it's brutal. She doesn't softly call his name and gently redirect him. She lunges. She aggressively pins him down to the floorboards.
Yeah.
She grips his small arm so tightly that she knows, factually, she is leaving bruises and hurting him.
Which is so hard to picture.
It is. And her internal monologue in that moment is chilling. All she can think is, I can't do this when he's bigger. I can't hold him, pin him, stop him.
She's projecting.
Exactly. She is already projecting into a future where she will be physically overpowered by her own son.
Right.
She has to imagine herself as a cold, unfeeling marble statue bleeding out onto the floor just to dissociate enough to survive the sheer stress of his screaming in her face.
It's a moment of profound maternal terror and inadequacy.
Yes.
And it is closely followed by another incident that really highlights her intense internalization of guilt.
The canned food incident.
Right.
Okay, so Jude is on one of his food strikes, refusing to eat anything.
Right.
In a moment of desperation to just get calories into him, she opens a tin of SpaghettiOs.
Safe, soft, processed food.
Exactly. He takes a single bite, freezes, and then starts screaming hysterically.
Oh.
And he's spitting out a mouthful of blood and sharp, jagged shards of glass.
Of awful.
There was glass in the canned meal.
Which is a horrifying freak occurrence.
Yes.
But Elodie's cognitive processing of the event is what we really need to examine here.
Because any normal parent would immediately recognize this as a manufacturing error.
Absolutely.
They would rush the child to the hospital, keep the can, and call a lawyer.
Right.
But what is Elodie's immediate, visceral thought? Her first thought isn't, I need to sue the manufacturer.
Wow.
Her first thought is, I almost killed him.
Wow.
She collapses onto the linoleum kitchen floor in this state of mottled, numbed horror.
Yeah.
She mentally absorbs all of the blame for forcing glass down her child's throat.
Even though it wasn't her fault.
Exactly. Even when Bren comes home, inspects the can, and calmly assures her it was clearly a factory error and not her fault, she cannot let it go.
She can't accept that.
She absorbs the guilt for everything that happens to Jude as if she is the architect of his every pain.
And when a human mind is forced to carry that monumental weight of anxiety, guilt, hypervigilance, and profound isolation without any healthy outlet, it begins to fracture.
Makes sense.
The stress hormones are constantly redlining. The brain cannot sustain that level of reality without a break.
So what happens?
So Elodie's mind begins to actively blur the lines of reality. The anxiety has to go somewhere.
Right.
And since she cannot confront Bren and she cannot fix Jude, she begins to project her psychological terror onto the physical environment itself.
And this is where the narrative shifts gears so smoothly from a tense psychological domestic drama into what feels exactly like a supernatural haunting.
Oh yeah, the haunting.
The physical house begins to actively reflect her internal decay. Elodie starts experiencing terrifying, impossible phenomena within the walls of this Victorian mansion.
We move from emotional rot to the literal physical manifestations of rot.
It starts subtly. Jude, who barely speaks, tells her one night in this eerie, flat voice.
Creepy kid trope.
Exactly. He says, I heard a scary thing in the walls. The house is bad, and it thinks Bren is bad. It thinks Mama is bad.
Terrifying.
Right. At first, Elodie tries to rationalize it. She tells herself it's just a traumatized 6-year-old's overactive imagination reacting to the sounds of settling timber and wind.
Sure.
But then she starts feeling it, too. She lays awake in the dark and she swears the house is breathing.
Breathing.
Yes, the walls are expanding and contracting like a massive set of lungs.
And the escalation from auditory whispers to highly visual, tactile, and olfactory hallucinations, that's a classic progression in narratives dealing with severe psychological breakdown.
Really?
Yeah, it perfectly mirrors the deterioration of her ego defenses.
And it gets incredibly graphic.
Oh, it does.
She's in the hallway one afternoon, pulling down layers of old, brittle wallpaper.
Okay.
As the paper peels away, she finds these thick, dark, wet-looking stains seeping through the plaster behind it.
Oh.
It looks exactly like blood. And worse, she can smell it.
The smell.
She describes the overpowering scent of hot, coppery blood filling the hallway.
So she calls Bren.
She calls Bren in a state of absolute panic, practically hysterical, telling him the walls of his childhood home are bleeding.
And Bren's reaction to this panic is a masterclass in weaponized calm.
Weaponized calm, I like that.
He comes home from work, surveys the scene, and adopts this incredibly patient, condescending tone.
Ugh, The worst.
Right. He looks at the stains and calmly explains that it's just old red brick rust seeping through the damp plaster.
Plausible deniability.
Exactly. And then he pivotally shifts the blame. He reminds her that she just panicked and destroyed thousands of dollars worth of historically accurate replica wallpaper.
Oh my God.
He tells her she's just stressed, her pregnancy hormones are acting up, and she is drastically overreacting.
It is the absolute pinnacle of gaslighting.
Truly.
It is the literal manifestation of a toxic, dismissive relationship.
Yeah.
Imagine being in a partnership where the walls of your home are literally weeping bodily fluids, you can smell the copper in the air, and your partner just pats your hand and says, "Oh, babe, you're just hysterical, you're imagining things. We just need to put up a fresh coat of paint."
The mechanics of gaslighting here are deeply tied to the literary history of the haunted house trope.
How so?
Well, it specifically echoes works like Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper.
Oh, right.
The trope historically relies on a male authority figure, usually a husband or a doctor, dismissing a woman's legitimate psychological or physical distress as hysteria.
Classic.
Right. Forcing her to doubt her own sanity until she actually does lose her mind.
Wow.
And the sources brilliantly force the reader into that exact same uncomfortable space of self-doubt.
Yeah, we're right there with her.
We are forced to question. Is Elodie hallucinating because of pregnancy hormones and severe CPTSD?
Or is the house actually built on cursed ground and haunted by a malevolent entity?
Exactly. Or is Bren carefully, meticulously manipulating her reality to keep her destabilized?
There is an incredibly vivid, terrifying scene that pushes this ambiguity to its absolute limit.
Oh, the floorboards.
Yes. Elodie is chasing a screaming Jude down the hallway.
Right.
She takes a step and she literally falls through the solid oak floorboards.
Which is terrifying.
But it doesn't feel like breaking through rotten wood.
No.
She describes the sensation of her foot sinking into the floor as if the wood itself had turned into a liquid serpentine mouth trying to devour her leg.
A mouth.
A mouth. She feels the distinct, crisp indentations of teeth sinking into her ankle.
That is so deeply unsettling.
She is screaming, flailing, terrified she's going to be swallowed whole.
And then Bren shows up.
Bren rushes into the hallway, pulls her up, looks down at the floor, and it is perfectly solid wood.
Unbelievable.
There is no hole. There is no broken board.
It's a terrifying sequence because Bren is so incredibly calm and rational in the aftermath.
So calm.
He looks at her, trembling and weeping on the floor, and he says, "Nobody is sick. It's not dangerous. Don't you think you're overreacting just a little?" He uses his calm demeanor as a weapon to highlight her instability.
But the tragedy is that her instincts, her visceral feeling that the house is a toxic entity trying to kill them, are entirely factually correct.
Yes, the big reveal.
Later in the narrative, Elodie is snooping down in the unfinished basement.
Snooping is always a bad idea.
Always. She opens a plastic storage tub and discovers dozens of used lead paint testing kits hidden inside.
Oh, wow.
Every single kit, labeled meticulously in Bren's handwriting for the dining room, the nursery, the kitchen, the hallways, reads starkly positive for high levels of toxic lead paint.
So he knew.
The revelation is earth-shattering. Bren knew. He knew his beloved childhood home was deeply, dangerously toxic.
And he moved them in anyway.
He knowingly moved a pregnant woman and a vulnerable, developing 6-year-old child into it anyway.
That is monstrous.
And then he looked his wife in the eye and lied to her face, calling her crazy when she said the house was making them physically and mentally sick.
Because he prioritized his obsessive need to reconstruct the architectural shell of his childhood over the actual biological safety of his living family.
He literally covered the poisonous rot with pretty historically accurate floral wallpaper.
Exactly. And lead poisoning, notably, can cause severe neurological symptoms.
Really?
Yes. Behavioral regressions in children and hallucinations in adults.
Oh my God, so it wasn't supernatural?
No. So the house was poisoning them, just not supernatural.
But to truly understand why Elodie's mind is so fragile, why she is cracking under the pressure of this toxic environment,
Right.
and why she is so deeply desperate to hold on to Bren despite all of these glaring, terrifying red flags, we have to look backward.
We have to look at her past.
We have to examine the foundation of her own psyche. We have to look at the original sin she has been running from her entire life.
Which brings us to a structural turning point in our understanding of these characters. Because the revelation of Elodie's dark secret fundamentally alters our perception of her victimization.
So Elodie is standing alone in her beautiful imported marble kitchen when an alert for a true crime podcast pops up on her phone.
Okay.
She listens to it, and it reveals that an older couple in Australia, her parents, have died in a murder-suicide.
That's intense enough on its own.
Right. But it's the casual throwaway context the podcast host provides that drops the floor out from under you.
What did it say?
The podcast mentions that the couple had a missing, estranged older daughter and a young son who died tragically many years ago.
And this completely recontextualizes Elodie's entire existence.
Entirely.
Because we learn that when Elodie was just 8 years old, she was tasked with watching her 2-year-old brother while he was in the bathtub.
Just a kid watching a kid.
Right. And she left the room for just a few minutes, which is a lapse in judgment common to any 8-year-old child.
Yeah, of course.
And in that brief window, her baby brother drowned.
The trauma of that event is unimaginable.
Truly.
The text describes her calling emergency services, sobbing into the phone, repeating over and over, "It's not my fault, I'm 8."
Oh, that breaks my heart.
But the tragedy destroyed her family. Her parents did not comfort her. They never forgave her.
Oh, blamed her.
They blamed her entirely for the death of their son. They devolved into what the text describes as empty husks.
Yeah.
They hoarded junk, let the house fall into squalor, blasted the television at all hours to drown out the oppressive silence, and completely systematically ignored Elodie's existence for the rest of her childhood.
That is so cruel.
They looked right through her as if she was a ghost in her own home.
And the psychological devastation of that specific type of environment cannot be overstated.
I can't even imagine.
When parents project the entirety of their grief and blame onto a surviving child, it completely rewires that child's developing brain.
Right.
Her parents' extreme emotional abuse and neglect solidified her core, inescapable belief that she is unlovable, dangerous, and fundamentally made of rot.
Wow.
She fully internalized the guilt of her brother's death. She believed she was a murderer at 8 years old.
And here is the detail that truly made me have to put the source material down and walk away for a minute.
It gets worse.
It gets so much worse.
Oh.
As a teenager, desperate for any shred of validation or love from these empty husks she called parents, Elodie purposely went to a party and got pregnant.
On purpose.
On purpose. She didn't even know the father's name. She got pregnant deliberately to give her parents a new baby to love.
Wow.
She thought if she could just replace what she took from them, it would fix them.
She thought it would bring them back.
Yes, that they would finally look at her again. She even went so far as to name the new baby Jude after her dead, drowned brother.
It is a profound, devastating example of the replacement child phenomenon taken to a pathological extreme.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
She tried to literally, biologically resurrect the life she accidentally ended.
So did it work?
No, the tragedy of this desperate restitution is that it failed entirely.
Yeah.
Her parents were too far gone in their own grief and mental illness. They still ignored her.
They didn't even care.
They didn't care about the new Jude. The grand sacrifice meant absolutely nothing to them.
But understanding this entirely explains her suffocating relationship with her son.
Everything clicks into place.
Right. Her obsessive, terrifying need to protect this Jude, her absolute terror of him being labeled broken by doctors,
Yeah.
her refusal to let anyone else judge his behavior, it is 100% rooted in her overwhelming, unhealed guilt over killing the first Jude.
Exactly.
She has to keep the second Jude safe at all costs to prove to herself and to the ghosts of her parents that she isn't a monster.
Exactly. Her entire maternal identity is built on a foundation of trying to rewrite history.
Wow.
She is trying to retroactively save the brother she couldn't save when she was 8.
But just as we start to feel this deep, profound sympathy for Elodie as a victim of horrific circumstance,
Right, because we do feel for her.
the narrative violently pulls the rug out from under us again.
As it always does.
Because the sources reveal a flashback that challenges every single positive thing we feel about Elodie's capacity as a mother.
Okay.
We learn about what happened when Jude was 5 years old. He got terribly sick, feverish, vomiting, entirely catatonic.
Okay.
At this time, Elodie and Jude were living in a squalid, damp, freezing garage attached to her parents' decaying house.
Yeah.
And Elodie abandoned him.
And we have to look at the stark reality of this choice.
Yeah.
She left a severely ill defenseless 5-year-old child alone in a freezing garage for 2 full days.
She left him so she could go on a romantic island getaway with Bren.
Unbelievable.
She was so desperate to escape the misery of her life, so desperate to secure Bren's affection and wealth, that she simply walked away.
And justified it how?
She told herself her father would check on Jude, even though she knew factually that her parents hadn't acknowledged their existence in years.
Right.
When she and Bren finally returned from the getaway, Jude was exactly where she left him.
Oh, no.
He was lying in the freezing garage, covered in his own vomit and dried urine, screaming himself hoarse.
That poor child.
He had been completely alone, terrified, and sick for 48 hours.
This is a critical juncture where you, as the listener, must evaluate Elodie's reliability and her morality.
Yeah, can we even trust her?
Well, she constantly views and presents herself as this fiercely protective, self-sacrificing mother.
Right.
Yet, when faced with the opportunity to escape her reality, her desperation overrode her maternal instinct,
Completely.
leading to horrific, abusive neglect.
And it explains so much.
The narrative explicitly links Jude's current severe regressions, his violent meltdowns, and his terror of being abandoned to this specific trauma.
He learned a terrible lesson.
He learned in that freezing garage that if he was alone and sick, no one would come. He learned that the only way to get his mother to pay attention to him was to scream, break things, and be violent.
It's sickening. She broke her own child to secure a boyfriend.
Yeah.
But her sheer desperation to escape that squalid garage and those neglectful parents made her the absolute perfect target.
The perfect target for Bren.
Exactly. Because while she thought she was manipulating Bren to get a better life, someone much more dangerous was waiting in the wings, watching her crack.
And unmasking that predator brings us to the revelation of Bren's savior complex.
Yeah.
And the true nature of their relationship.
The tension reaches a boiling point when Elodie finally ventures down into the unfinished, cavernous basement of the Victorian house.
Basements are never good in these stories.
Never. The wooden stairs are coated in this viscid, congealed liquid, and the entire room is seething with a thick, suffocating carpet of black mold.
So gross.
The rot is literal and undeniable down here. And sitting on a heavy wooden workbench in the center of the room, she finds a shrine.
But it's not a shrine to his dead parents.
Yeah.
It's a meticulously curated collection of printed photographs.
And they aren't photos from their relationship or their wedding.
What are they?
They are photos of Elodie and Jude at a rundown, dirty playground in Australia from 3 years ago.
Wait, what?
Yes, long before they ever officially met. There's a photo of her standing outside a mall, heavily pregnant with Jude, looking exhausted and alone.
The realization hits her and the reader with the force of a physical blow.
It's mind-blowing.
Bren didn't just happen to meet her by accident at a coffee shop.
No.
He orchestrated the entire relationship. He stalked her.
For 6 years.
6 years.
He started tracking and stalking her when she was 17 years old, pregnant and vulnerable.
He found the perfect victim.
He utilized his immense wealth to fly back and forth to Australia, secretly take photos of her at her lowest moments, build a massive digital and physical shrine, and carefully plot exactly how to insert himself into her life.
And to understand the pathology of a man who would dedicate 6 years to stalking a teenager across the globe, we have to unpack his own severe trauma response.
Right.
The narrative reveals that when Bren was 10 years old, he begged his parents to take him to the local mall to buy a specific birthday present.
Okay.
While they were walking through the concourse, a mass shooting occurred.
Oh my God.
As the gunfire started, his father violently shoved Bren to the tile floor and shielded him with his own body, taking the bullets intended for his son.
That is horrific.
His father bled out on top of him. Bren lay there, trapped under the dead weight of his father's bleeding corpse for hours until the police secured the building.
It is an unimaginable, world-shattering trauma for a 10-year-old boy.
Absolutely.
When you experience a trauma that robs you of your safety and your family so violently, it makes terrifying sense that Bren's psychological response isn't to go to therapy and move on.
Right.
His response is to aggressively, almost psychotically, try to recreate the exact family he lost in the exact house he lost them from.
It is the ultimate manifestation of trauma reenactment.
Yeah.
He inherited the Victorian house, and his entire life's purpose became fixing the architectural shell and filling it with human props to mirror his dead parents.
But the crucial question is, Why choose Elodie?
Exactly.
With his wealth, his looks, and his status, he could have married into any of the perfect January social circles.
Right. You could have had anyone.
Why dedicate years to stalking a traumatized, isolated teen mother living in a damp garage?
Because he didn't want a partner with agency. He wanted someone who was so fundamentally broken, so isolated from the world, and so overwhelmingly burdened by her own guilt that she would never, ever possess the emotional or financial resources to leave him.
That is so dark.
He viewed himself as her ultimate savior. He watched her from the shadows. He saw the abusive, neglectful setup with her parents.
He saw it all.
He saw how she selfishly neglected Jude for a chance at romance, and he swooped in to rescue her, knowing her dark secrets meant she was entirely dependent on him.
He essentially weaponized her trauma against her.
Precise.
He didn't see Elodie and Jude as autonomous human beings with their own futures. He viewed them as raw materials.
Human props.
Yes. He cast them as the wife and child props he desperately needed to stage his perfect family recreation.
And when Elodie finally confronts him in that mold-infested basement, holding a heavy circular saw just to feel protected,
Yeah, that scene is intense.
Bren's justification is chillingly, sociopathically calm.
What does he say?
He looks at her and says, "I'm not a psychopath. I just wanted someone who wouldn't leave me."
Wow.
And then he masterfully twists the knife by turning her own guilt against her. He says, "And you have to admit, you started it."
And the tragedy is, she internally agrees with him.
Because she knows what she did.
Right. She admits to herself that she used him. She used him for his money, for an escape from the garage, for a roof over Jude's head.
She thought she was the manipulator.
She purposefully played the role of the enigmatic, mysterious, needy girl to trap a wealthy provider.
Yeah.
Completely failing to realize that by playing the bait, she was walking willingly into a cage.
Such a great metaphor.
They are two fundamentally broken monsters who looked at each other and only saw the reflection of what they desperately needed.
And when you trap two deeply traumatized, highly manipulative predators in a toxic, mold-filled basement,
It's not going to end well.
cornered by their own lies, it can only end in spectacular violence.
The confrontation escalates beyond the point of no return.
Yes.
Bren, realizing his perfect facade is crumbling, drops the benevolent savior act entirely.
The mask comes off.
He viciously accuses Elodie of faking her love for years just to secure his wealth. He throws her horrific neglect of Jude in the garage back in her face, proving he knew about it all along.
He was just holding onto it as leverage.
Exactly. And then he plays his ultimate trump card to ensure her compliance.
He reveals that he knows her deepest, darkest secret.
Oh, man.
He figured out that she let her brother drown when she was 8.
He knows everything.
He knows that her parents committed suicide in Australia right after Elodie and Bren left for America, essentially dying of the grief Elodie caused.
That is heavy.
He screams at her, "I know you did this to me. You used me to get pregnant when I had no fucking idea."
Wow.
And then he delivers the final fatal threat.
What does he threaten?
He tells her he is going to divorce her, take Jude, and take the unborn baby away from her, claiming to the courts that she is an unfit, murderous, neglectful mother.
And for Elodie, that threat is the absolute nuclear option.
It's the one thing she can't abide.
Losing Jude, the only tangible proof she has constructed to convince herself she isn't a monster, is the ultimate psychological trigger.
Right.
It threatens to obliterate the fragile identity she has built.
So what happens?
Elodie is still gripping the circular saw.
Oh, right. The saw.
Throughout the entire story, the January family had casually joked about Bren's power tools being dangerous and faulty,
Setting it up.
specifically mentioning a saw that would sometimes short-circuit and turn on by itself.
Foreshadowing.
As Bren steps toward her, threatening to take her children and expose her rot to the world, the saw turns on. She raises it, and the spinning blade tears straight through Bren's chest.
Brutal.
It slices through his collarbone, shattering the bone, and kicks back up into his face. He is brutally, viscerally butchered on the basement floor.
It is an incredibly graphic climax.
Yeah.
But what is truly fascinating is the psychological gymnastics Elodie performs in the immediate aftermath.
How does she react?
Well, this is where we must deconstruct the title of the book itself. You did nothing wrong.
Okay.
How does a human mind process committing such an intimate, gruesome murder?
She completely instantaneously absolves herself.
Boom. Just like that.
As Bren is bleeding out, choking on his own blood, she repeats the phrase in her mind like a protective mantra. The switch on the circular saw is faulty. It turns on by itself sometimes. She did nothing wrong.
Wow.
She retreats into a profound, impenetrable state of dissociation.
He has to.
She fully and finally embraces her role as the unreliable narrator because it is the only way to survive the reality of the horror she has just unleashed. She refuses to accept agency. She blames the faulty wiring. She blames the house.
The bleeding walls.
Yes.
Huh.
She imagines the basement walls physically pulsing, becoming mucousy and wet, actively digesting the violence and hiding her sin.
It is the ultimate psychological defense mechanism, really. A total fracturing of reality.
It's insane.
Her fragile ego cannot integrate the identity of a cold-blooded killer.
No.
If she accepts that she murdered her husband, she confirms her parents' belief that she is inherently evil.
Ah, there it is.
So she simply rewrites the narrative in real time. The machine malfunctioned. It was a tragic accident. She is innocent.
But the narrative delivers one final, horrifying pushback to her entire core motivation.
The irony of it all.
Exactly. Why did she endure the isolation? Why did she endure the gaslighting? Why did she endure the bleeding walls and the lead paint?
Supposedly to protect Jude.
Her entire stated purpose was to keep Jude safe from the trauma of the world.
Yeah.
But as Bren is bleeding to death, gurgling on the basement floor, Elodie looks up and Jude is standing right there on the stairs.
Oh,
He followed Bren downstairs. He stood in the shadows and watched his mother butcher his stepfather with a power tool.
The tragic irony is absolutely devastating.
Completely.
In her obsessive, suffocating quest to shield him from the world's judgment and her own past failures,
Yeah.
she exposes him to an unfathomable, visceral trauma. A trauma that will undoubtedly scar him far deeper than any doctor's diagnosis ever could.
The imagery of the immediate aftermath is haunting.
Tell me about it.
The violence is done, and she is sitting on the floor of the downstairs bathroom, rocking a completely catatonic Jude in her
It's
arms.
just rocking him.
She is gently humming a sweet lullaby to him, trying to soothe him, while she can literally taste the metallic tang of Bren's blood splattered across her own face.
That is a cinematic image.
With Bren dead, the immediate threat is neutralized. You might think, logically, that Elodie and Jude are finally free.
They survive the monster.
They can run away and start over, but the epilogue reveals an aftermath that is far more disturbing than a simple escape.
Because we have to examine what Elodie does with this newly acquired freedom.
Right.
Does she use it to break the cycle of trauma? Or does she simply find a new environment to infect?
Elodie packs Jude into Bren's pristine, expensive SUV and drives through the night to Ava's house.
Bren's sister.
Yes, the epitome of the perfect Januaries. Ava opens her heavy oak front door in the middle of the night to find Elodie standing on her porch,
Covered in blood.
soaked in her brother's blood, holding a completely silent, traumatized Jude, whose little fire truck pajamas are painted red with his stepfather's blood.
Oh my God.
And Elodie doesn't ask for help. She doesn't call the police. She hands Jude over to Ava.
It is a moment of fractured, agonizing clarity for Elodie.
How so?
She realizes, looking at the blood on her hands, that she truly is a monster.
Yeah.
She believes that Ava, with her immense wealth, her emotional stability, and her perfect aesthetic, will be a better, safer mother to him.
But is she right?
Well, the reality of her action is that she abandons him yet again. She repeats the trauma of the freezing garage, this time permanently.
She walks away from the only thing she claimed to love.
Yep.
She flees to a massive, anonymous city, completely changes her identity, and starts calling herself Rose.
A fresh start.
She finds a job sweeping floors at a small Italian grocery store run by a sweet, deeply trusting older woman named Maria.
Oh, poor Maria.
And what does Elodie do with this clean slate? She immediately reverts to her predatory instincts.
It's all she knows.
She uses her pregnancy, Bren's unborn baby, to play the role of a tragic, helpless victim.
A familiar role for her.
She spins a fabricated, tear-jerking story about an abusive ex-boyfriend to secure Maria's sympathy, free rent in the apartment above the store, and absolute protection.
The psychological tragedy of this conclusion is just profound.
It really is.
Elodie has learned absolutely nothing from the devastation she caused.
Nothing at all.
She's not sought healing. She's simply mutated to survive a new environment.
Like a virus.
Exactly. She abandoned her deeply traumatized child to the family of the man she murdered, hit the reset button on her own life, and is already actively manipulating her next set of victims.
It's chilling.
The narrative explicitly notes her observing Maria's household. She gives long, measured glances to Maria's traumatized, vulnerable 20-year-old grandson.
Assessing his weaknesses.
She is hunting for her next host.
And the chilling final observation of the entire story seals this tragic loop.
What is it?
At the very end, she's sitting alone and the baby in her stomach kicks.
Okay.
Elodie touches her belly, smiles softly, and decides what she's going to name this new baby, her fresh start.
Let me guess.
She says, his name is Jude.
Jude the Third.
Jude the Third.
The original toddler brother she let drown in a bathtub. The 6-year-old son she traumatized, weaponized, and ultimately abandoned to a stranger.
Yeah.
And now the unborn child who is already doomed to inherit the exact same cycle of manipulation, suffocating enmeshment, and emotional parasitism.
It is an absolute gut punch of an ending.
It really is.
You did nothing wrong. Brilliantly subverts our expectations.
Totally.
It uses the familiar, comforting tropes of a haunted house. The bleeding walls, the liquid floorboards, the whispering in the dark.
To trick us into looking for monsters under the bed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it ultimately forces us to explore a reality that is infinitely more terrifying. The insidious nature of inherited trauma, the suffocating toxicity of mutual obsession, and the horrifying bloody lengths human beings will go to hide their own internal rot from the people they claim to love.
Because the true horror is the realization that the haunting was never supernatural.
Right.
The haunting was always the inescapable weight of their own unprocessed guilt and trauma, leading out of their minds and projecting onto the physical space around them.
The sources we explore today pull no punches.
Not a single one.
They ask heavy, deeply uncomfortable questions about the dark side of devotion and what we are capable of doing to survive the horrors of our own minds.
And as we close this deep dive, I'll leave you with one final, provocative thought to consider in your own life. We spent this time watching Bren and Elodie desperately try to build a picture-perfect life over a foundation of black mold, toxic lead paint, and unhealed wounds.
Yeah.
If our past inevitably shapes our present, how much of your own house, the structure of your daily life, your relationships, the identity you present to the world, is built on a foundation of rot that you are simply covering up with pretty replica wallpaper?
Wow. That's a powerful question.
Are you actively doing the hard, painful work to tear up the floorboards and heal your traumas at the root? Or are you just sitting quietly in the dark, waiting for the walls to start bleeding?